And here we are doing our strengths conversations today. Today's topic is discipline. I'm Jeff Fennekamp. I'm always with my buddy Brent Olinger.
Today's topic is deliberative.
It's deliberative. Yeah. See, I got it. Deliberative. I just have to change a page. That's so
It's okay.
funny.
It's the Zoom meetings.
It might be, right? Like it might be. I'm good. Deliberative. I was debating on how to send this email. That's right. That's even better. Because people, some of the attributes of those that are deliberative, they take serious care in making decisions. They have lots of choices and they see lots of choices, and they take a lot of pride in examining all of their choices.
Yeah.
They are great at anticipating obstacles in their way. They need time to think and listen before they speak in gatherings or meetings. They like to hear from others before they make a decision. And then they double and or triple check before moving on. Does that sound like either you, Jenny, or Jasmine?
Definitely me.
One of my favorite deliberative moments was with a former professor, Mike Wanis, if you remember Michael. And he and I spent a lot of great strengths conversations talking. And he was debating on which phone to get. Well, he was getting a new cell phone, and he had decided, he was also a researcher by trade, so he did a lot of research to begin with. And he carried around with him a 3-ring binder of different cell phones, different cell phone plans. This was right about the time, Jasmine, to give you context, right about the time that smartphones were becoming the norm. So there was a long series where it was just a basic flip phone kind of thing. And he was deciding that he was going to make a jump into the smartphone market. Months of research, months of deliberating, months of talking about it, till finally one day I ran into him in the dining room and I was like, "So Mike, what phone did you decide?" And he pulls out his binder and says, I can't make a decision. And I said, "This is your deliberative in hyper gear. You're going today. I'll go with you. Let's make a decision." And he needed somebody to push him to a decision moment because he was at a wall just looking at all the choices, because there's a gazillion choices. Does that sound like you, Jenny or Jasmine? Have you ever had that moment?
So I can tell you one of my deliberative stories is when I was making my college decision. I saved every single piece of mail any college sent me, had them alphabetized in order in this giant box. It actually became 3 boxes, but in order. Colleges I had probably no intention of going to: West Point, still saved, filed under W. I needed all of it. I was not throwing it away. I was going to review it all, I guess in alphabetical order at one point.
That's probably a little bit of your organization structure right there too, eh? Yeah. I mean, and that's another attribute. The people with deliberative are very organized. There's a system in place for everything, right?
Yes, as there should be.
Yeah. Jasmine, what about you? Can you think of a moment where your deliberative was high?
I haven't really done anything like your professor did, save a bunch of information for a month or so. But when I make a decision, I like to look at the pros and cons of things. And yeah, I don't know. I just like to make sure that it'll be more good than bad, but whatever I choose. But like also like a little thing whenever I go shopping, like stuff, and I don't know. And then I'm like, do I need this? Is it really worth it? Things like that.
One of the things to think that I always think about when I think about deliberative are, and one of the attributes that we talk about is people that are actually really good in tough times and are frugal. And so that's what I heard you say, Jasmine, is you kind of make a decision like, okay, is this the right decision to make at this moment? I want to buy this, but maybe I should really think about it. I would imagine some days that's really helpful because it helps you from making a bad choice, and really frustrating because you get home and you're like, oh, I so should have done this. I had a chance.
Do either of you, I know one of the things it talks about is kind of being a sounding board, whether that's for like friends or colleagues. Like, do you ever find yourself like walking people through like, well, if you do this, this might happen, or like kind of assessing for risk or assessing for what might happen?
Yeah, I've done that a few times. Back in like middle school, I kind of felt like a therapist or a counselor. Like all of my friends would ask me for advice, and then I would just like talk through their problems with them and give them some advice. Like even now, when I talk to my friends, I'm like, I do that sometimes. Like if you do this, like this could happen, that could happen, or just give them like a bunch of like possible options and then like good.
Do either of you have like a system? Like, here's my decision making system. And have you, Jenny, maybe just because you're more experienced, have honed something that like, okay, when I need to make a decision, I go through these steps in order to get it done?
I found writing it down or typing it if it's not pen and paper. Like I need like some written, this is the process, and I'll start writing it out. And then I've said before, when I start trying to write down, this is the problem, this is where we're at, this is what we should do, or this is what we need to figure out. When I start writing it down, I can figure out the path so much faster than when I just let my head spin on it too long.
Sure.
So that's probably one of the best things. And then having a sounding board, actually, I find it's helpful to have somebody, because I tend to not just be a sounding board for others, but needing that sounding board, because I can get really hung up on something that has, as my friend told me actually just yesterday, that I would worry about things. There's one of my former coworkers, and she's like, you're worrying about things that have a 0.0001% chance of happening. I'm like, I know, but we should make a plan for it just in case.
Yeah. Is it, you also,
so if
you were
aliens
also here
land
for
at Viking
strategic,
days, we
right?
need a plan.
You were also here for strategic, weren't you?
Yeah.
So you're combining your strategic and your deliberative into,
which is why I said they worked together last time.
yeah, which is why they work together so well.
That's why I love my strengths. It always amuses me when you say that people want to retake their strengths. I'm like, why?
Yeah.
Mine are so awesome.
I'm good. I like them. I'm stuck here. Yeah.
I've described it in my brain as kind of like a gas and brake pedal, like a new driver, a new student driver. Because my brain will go, stop, stop.
Thanks for joining us, Jody. Do you have deliberative? I was just curious.
No,
Okay.
I'm just trying to gather more information so I can understand people better.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's all. Yeah, thanks for coming. The you know, some of the action items I think for people with high deliberative, is, and Jenny, you were referring to it, is get better and more adept at sharing your thought process and become comfortable saying, can I share my process with you, whether it's an organization or something like, I'm sorry, my dog has just decided to come and eat me right now. Yeah, sorry about that. It's very distracting because she's a little land shark and she just can come and take care of you really fast. But be ready to explain your thought process to people and how you came to this decision, or work with those to help you come up with timelines. It's another action step. Like sometimes people with deliberative can really be stuck and like, I don't know the path forward, or as Jenny, you said, I can see all these options and they each have pluses and minuses and I don't know which way to go. Make sure you can clarify with whomever what that timeline to make a decision is. You know, Patrick Hicks, I remember Patrick Hicks very clearly asking one day, or being asked one day, how he meets deadlines for his authors. And he said, my deadline is when the publisher comes and says, hand it to me. Otherwise, I'll be working on it, you know? And sometimes that's what a deliberative needs, is some clarification of, you're making this decision now, you know, like timeline is set. And here's why, even because you can, you know, I need this decision to be made at this time so that it can be done by this time.
And I find finding the right sounding board is really important too. I mean, it probably always is, but if I go to, there's certain people I know, if I go to, they'll just make the decision. I'm like, no, you didn't listen to all of the problems and all of the issues. You don't know.
So, Jenny, I have a question for you. So do you have to like preface, if you need to talk things through, do you preface saying, okay, I just need to talk this through, or do you have that person where it's like, okay, and you can just say it? Because I've had to try to, and I don't want to use this word, but coach my husband, that if our daughters come to him and start complaining about something, they don't want you to fix it. They just need to, you know, get it out. So is that what you have to do, is kind of say, okay, I just need to talk this through?
I have learned to do that, to preface the conversation that way, because starting off in my career, starting off when I was Jasmine's age, maybe it was much harder for me. So I would feel very unheard, very not listened to, because they would just be like, well, oh, don't worry about that, or something like that. I'm like, you don't understand. I'm going to worry about it for 3 more years. I need to talk about it. I need that, I need a reassurance then that this particular part that I'm worrying about is okay, or isn't going to happen, or that it's okay for me to plan around it. So I do have a really good friend who is good about letting me plan around things that, again, will never happen in her mind. But if they do, I am ready. Jeff is muted. Or unplugged, one of the two.
My dog has gone through at least 3 of these, because he comes and he bites them and then he breaks them, because these aren't, you know, these are fragile. I'll just add it to the collection of monies that my dog owes me when she becomes profitable. One of the things that I often ask people or work with people with deliberative to think about is setting aside some time to be mindful and setting aside time for thought, whether that's learning a meditation practice, or finding 5 minutes a day just to go and sit outside and to think, or in those moments when you know you have to make a decision, but you can't decide, finding a spot to go do that, or a moment where you can be like, okay, great, give me 5 minutes and I'll go make this decision. But actually coming up with some kind of mindfulness activity so that you can do that. Do either you, Jasmine, or Jenny practice in that way or do that in some way?
Probably not as much as I should. I think there's definitely moments where I need to be alone with my thoughts to work it out,
Okay.
for sure.
Yeah.
It's not as structured as more like when everybody leaves the office. It's like, finally they're all gone and I can think out the world, solve it, and then I can go home an hour later or something to that effect. So it would probably be more helpful if I closed my door during work at some point,
Right.
and just took that time.
How about you, Jasmine? Do you ever find yourself taking time or needing time, or do you have a practice that you use?
Kind of same with Jenny. Like, I should be doing more. I wish I'd be like more mindful of things. Sometimes, I like to journal my thoughts out because I think that's very helpful.
Jenny mentioned
But
that earlier today too, writing it down.
yeah, it really helps a lot. But I wish like I would do more.
Well, that might be something for you both to try and take on is maybe starting a simple meditation practice or something like that of finding time and just finding, when the Tibetan monks were on campus, they did a whole session on meditation, and they said nobody starts meditating like the monks do the monks meditate for hours and whatnot. Nobody starts that way. Everybody starts with 5 minutes and just centering for 5 minutes and trying to keep one thought in your brain for 5 minutes is how the practice begins. So maybe there's something with that, right? Those of you that are always, Jenny rolls her eyes, one thought, 5 minutes for one thought.
Isn't that torture? Does that sound like torture to anybody else?
Yeah.
Interesting. I wish I could do it, and I've never been able to focus like that, but I think it sounds like a fun practice, like being able to. So the practice that they taught was put a thought in your mind and make it your, this is what I want to think about today. And then every time your mind drifts off, bring it back. And every time your mind drifts off, bring it back to that one thought. And that's how you learn to meditate on one item, is to keep coming back to that thing. And it's not like some people think of meditation like a nap. It's like, it's work. Many times the monks come out of a meditation being like, whoo, I'm a little sweaty from that thing. And it's more like exercise. So
I think an important thing to keep in mind, because sometimes with our strengths, the perceptions that others have of it might be different than how we're perceiving it. So we talked a lot about communication, but I think it's also important just to recognize and like keep people along in your process. And you're not doing a risk assessment, or you're not trying to like prolong a decision. You're really trying to flesh things out and trying to find the best way to explain that to others and bring them along in your process can really be effective.
absolutely.
Yeah, I think sometimes you can be perceived as being negative or against an idea when you're like, no, I want to get to your place.
Well, and I think just
it
simply
takes me
if
longer.
someone gives that feedback, or if you are just saying, I'm not trying to slow the wheels down, but I just want to do a quick risk assessment. and here are my thoughts of that.
Yeah. I wonder if there's a person or a certain talents that you could partner with that would also help in that, like, or help those that have deliberative, right? Like, I need,
I would say activator.
yeah, like an activator is like, okay, stop thinking, we're moving, right? Or
I think even like probably like self-assurance and commands, someone with like high self-assurance, like as maybe you're going, I don't know if to make this decision or this decision, like someone who's really self-assured is going to be like, well, no, this is why this is the best decision. You've walked me through your process. This is why this makes sense.
right, and really confident about it.
Yeah.
You know, the thing about those with self-assurance is they really promote not only confidence in a decision, but they're confident, they bring the group along with that confidence. They're good at that.
How popular is deliberative on campus?
That's a great question. Well, you guys look that up for us, because that's a great question.
And I have a question. I'm sorry that I missed the first part, but so deliberative, it's the person who has to like go through the process, talk through the process over and over and over again to help calm them, to help them to be assured that that's the right answer.
I think a way of explaining it is like, given, you know, let's say for Jenny has to plan this event. Jenny's going to see potentially on what decisions are made, like what are potential obstacles that might be in the way at an event, and doing kind of a risk assessment of like, okay, if we do this, this is where we're going to go with it, or what potential issues might come up and how do we mitigate those.
Okay. Which is a good quality to have, because of course they're the people that just kind of float on and just want to do things. And I'm sure, Jenny, you're like, hold on.
Yeah, sometimes. But as I said last week, and there's also a need to move forward, and you know that internally, and I know that with my other strengths too, pushing me forward. But occasionally you hit this wall of, I can't get past this problem, this one issue I'm not seeing a solution for. And then you get almost stuck. So it's good to be able to see the problems, but if you're too stuck on a problem, it's a problem too.
Yeah. Your deliberative is 18th, so smack right dab in the middle on campus. 13% of our people have deliberative in their profile. So let's see, what else can I tell you about it, or what else, you know, not having deliberative, and honestly, this has to be low on my list, because I'm more of a run through it kind of guy. You know, there many times there's a Jeff Vennekamp shaped hole in the wall because I've run right through it, and often get told, well, you could have thought about that for a couple more minutes. And I think that's my I think it's my combination of connectedness and strategic kind of working against me right there, because I'm like, it'll work out. Plus, I've thought through all the scenarios, so it'll be fine.
I think another great strength that can work with deliberative is adaptability.
Sure.
Mary Toso has adaptability, and how often she'd be like, well, we'll just figure it out that day. I'm like, what? That day?
Day?
She has special magical abilities that can make many things happen on the day. Yeah.
Like even just saying it. Gave me a little heart attack there.
Just to remember, Mary started with student affairs and in campus and in student programming. And so when you deal with student programming, you just get used to doing whatever it is they have, because that's how far in advance they're thinking about it. That also is Brent's job right now, and you can see it driving him crazy a little bit. He's like, think about this a little bit more. And they're like, it'll work out. We'll do it the day of. Look at him. His eyes open up like, oh, I know it causes him stress already.
Yeah. I know as I was reading up more on deliberative, because it's not high up for me either, one analogy was like thinking of it like a break. Like I need to make cautious social decisions, where someone with woo is very socially adventurous. Someone with deliberative might be more socially cautious. So, and that cannot necessarily apply to like social situations, but in planning and developing things. Having a decision like, hey, we need to do this event and tomorrow's the deadline. It's like, oh, I need more time to plan that out.
Yeah, I said I would be good if we reopened the country like in 3 years. I'm good then. Anyone else?
I don't know if I'm up to 3 years, but I understand the sentiments.
Just want to think out some issues.
Fair.
Well, I appreciate everybody coming every week. I appreciate you and your time today. I think we'll wrap it up if that's all right with everybody. Jasmine, thank you for coming. It's always great to have the student perspective at these conversations and participating. And Brent, next week?
Well, both of us are gone next week, out on vacation, right, Jeff?
That's right. So,
okay. So it'll be the 22nd, and competition is the next strengths we'll talk about at 3:30.
Are you like just modeling this after my life?
I told you last week that we just searched your strengths, and that's what we did.
And then individual.
So the 22nd, we'll do competition, and
and is there a prize if you get to the meeting first?
You get to be there first. Is there a winner? I don't know. Maybe we'll figure that out. Maybe I'll send a strengths set, a deck of strengths quest cards to you as the first person in. But anyhow, thanks everybody for coming. We will take care of yourselves, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.